Hi, welcome everyone to Zillow Group's video series. I'm Lauren Hawley and will be hosting today's session. Today we will be focusing on how to sell in a virtual world. This topic is more important than ever, and I'm sure everyone attending this session has been bombarded with messages encouraging them to adopt virtual processes. But what does that really mean? Sure, we need to use video messaging, 3D tours, etc. But what are the specific tools? How do we use them? And how do we ensure that we're communicating effectively through these platforms with our clientele? In order to shed light on how to successfully adopt a virtual mindset, we have brought in two of our esteemed Premier Agent partners, Parker Pemberton and Dave Ness. Both Dave and Parker currently operate in the field, but also act as two of Zillow Group's Agent Advisory Board members. The Advisory Board is our go-to for reviewing product updates, discussing best practices, and brainstorming the future of real estate. If you see something new Zillow Group has produced, there's a really good chance that these two have made an impact on it. So without further ado, let's introduce our two guests. Parker and Dave, how are you doing?
Hey, Lauren. Great. Thanks for having us today. Excited.
Great to be here. Yeah, thanks for putting this together, and definitely looking forward to sharing anything that might be helpful and adding value.
Absolutely. Well, you both do bring a lot of value, so I'm excited to have you both on here as well. So tell me, where do you stand on today's current climate? Dave, if you want to go first.
Yeah, for sure. Today's real estate climate, I think, is pushed more and more and more into the digital/virtual world. I feel like that term virtual has become kind of a little bit of a buzzword out in the communities, especially in the agent community. We're hearing a lot about virtual services, virtual tours, virtual appointments. And I think in some ways the future has just been kind of accelerated a little bit faster than I think any of us were really anticipating, including me. But yeah, there seems to have been a little bit of an event where the future gets drawn near, and that happens from time to time. I can think back to multiple instances in the past histories of 15 years of working in the business where something was on the horizon way far away. And then all of a sudden it was now, and it was right away. We had to adopt it and adjust and pivot. And so I think that kind of describes pretty clearly where we are now with this whole idea of virtual real estate. So look forward to talking a little bit more about that.
That's a great point. The big thing I just took from what you said was it accelerated the future, right? And for us, just for perspective, I sell real estate, buyers and sellers, and I run a team. We're in Minneapolis. And so we have some challenges around winters and seasonal change up here in the Midwest. And we've been doing a lot of this stuff now for 3-4 years. Everything's electronic. All of our records are in the Drive or Dropbox. We've been doing virtual tours. We've been doing Facebook Lives, all this stuff. But this has for sure accelerated all of that to now. And I think if you're not using these tools right now, I think you're going to be forced to very soon.
Absolutely. So I do have to ask, I know, Parker, you mentioned that you've been doing this for the last 3 or 4 years. When did you both start having a virtual mindset in real estate, and how did you start incorporating it? How did you realize that you needed to incorporate it? Dave, if you want to go.
I've always been paper averse. I don't like clutter. I don't like a lot of paper, disorganization. If there's any big value add that I've instilled into my company and into my team, it's just being really tight, really systematic, really programmatic, and making sure that everything is accessible from anywhere. And so early on, that meant, of course, like Parker's mentioning, some of the tools that we've been using now for a long time, Dropbox and some of the even doing this with clients, Skype meetings and Zoom meetings and whatnot. But today, when you fast forward, that demand from the consumer is really, really powerful. And I think sometimes as agents, we tend to miss that a little bit. We tend to forget that our whole livelihood and our whole business and our whole industry is driven by what the consumers want. And I think sometimes we can get maybe a little bit stuck in our ways, maybe a little bit high on the horse. But in the end, if we look to the consumer and say, well, what do they want? What's really important to them? I think it's really indicative of where the future is going. And what we found is what the consumer wants is ease. They want simplicity. They want it fast. They want it now. They want it easy. And so, the number of us that are going to go out and create a brand new platform or create a brand new system is probably pretty few and far between. But what we can do is simply take some of the tools and some of the platforms that are readily available, like Zoom, and start leveraging it in a little bit of a different way, like virtual tours. And so Zoom has traditionally been used to do something like this, like we're doing right now. But being in the field and doing a virtual tour with someone on their phone and getting them one step closer to making an informed and empowered decision, that's kind of our job. That's our job more than ever before as agents, and just leveraging technology and making sure that people really do get the service that they want, which is simple, fast, easy, and very technologically driven. So it's been a long time since we've been leveraging some of these services. In today's climate, we've had to up that ante a little bit. But like I said in the beginning, that's kind of been the trajectory for a long time now, but now more than ever before. So
I'll build on that a little bit. And for the record, I am a millennial. I'm not afraid to admit it, but technology has always come very natural to me. And when I got into this business, I realized that this was a business that was very antiquated, right? And it had a lot of catching up to do to the rest of the world. And so I basically established that from day one in my career. And I also knew that in order to build my business fast and efficiently, I needed to use technology to my advantage. And what that means is serving the client at the highest level and being able to offer them all of the services that are out there. I mentioned I'm from Minneapolis, and it gets really cold here in the winter times. Sometimes we'll have blizzards, there'll be ice covered roads. And clients don't want to go and see houses. So we've been doing these virtual tours and showing them the houses that, yeah, I'll take it slow and go and see 3-4 houses for a client. The advantage to that is getting them into a house quicker than somebody else, and a lot of times winning offers because you are first to an offer situation. So like for me, it's always been efficiency and customer service. Those two things, if I can do them better than anyone else, I know I'm going to succeed.
Parker, that's a great point that you brought up. I like to hone in on what you said about being a millennial, right? I think that, as times are changing, we're noticing that millennials are actually a large part of the housing market now. And we do have to cater towards the millennial buyer. And millennial buyers and sellers, those are people that grew up with technology. They grew up with cell phones and the internet and, other technological advances. And so they grasp onto the virtual world. And as Generation Z is starting to get older as well, we're going to see even more of an influx of the technological age. So really great point. Now, Parker, I do have to ask you, you have a lot of really great resources that you alluded to. How are you working with buyers, and what processes and steps do you use currently?
This is a deep question that could be taken a lot of different directions, but in regards to keeping things virtual, we use Zoom a lot. Zoom's pretty much my number one. We use Google Drive. We use 3D tours that we take ourselves and those type of things. One of the things that I've done to be a little bit more efficient, because I use Zoom so much, is I've created a custom URL that I can direct clients to that's not so confusing. It's very simple. You just go to GoDaddy, you buy the URL, and you direct it to your Zoom page, which allows you to send them something that's consistent every time. And the reason I did that is because if you're familiar with Zoom, you go into the platform and they spit out this long URL that has a bunch of letters and numbers in it. And every single time, you have to recopy and paste it. And that just frustrated me. So I created my Zoom link, which my clients now, they just say, hey, I'll see you on Zoom. And I'll say, great, see you there at 3 o'clock. Just a little bit of extra effort there shows them that, number one, I'm good with technology, even though it's really simple to set up. And number two, I embrace it and use it often in a transaction.
Dave, I know that you have a buyer's guide for, how you walk a buyer through a buying process. Can you talk about from lead essentially to close what you're doing and how you're incorporating, let's say if you only are working with someone virtually, someone's moving from out of town, how are you working with them?
So how we're leveraging technology, just working with buyers, I kind of want to bookend this whole answer that I'm going to give you with the thought that it's actually not all that novel. And so for anyone who's watching or listening right now, they might be thinking, well, that's not all that special. It's not all that innovative. And that's not really the point, because the tools that we're using are not tools that we created. Neither Parker nor I created Zoom. We didn't create Google Drive. We didn't create Dropbox. We didn't create digital signatures. We didn't create any of that. But to me, the secret sauce is how you package that, right? How you inform and educate our clients, and in this case, to your question, buyers. And so making a really, really streamlined, clear, concise, simple path forward on how to buy in a virtual environment, that's the sweet sauce. So how you package it and how you explain it to a buyer is everything. Because the reality is people have been buying homes virtually for a long time. I can think back 10 years ago, I had a client moving from Chicago, super hot market in Denver, and similar to Parker's story about snowy roads. It was just demanding on her to buy in the current state that she was in, which was virtually from Chicago. And we did. We walked through the entire thing together. But those tools and innovations they've been in existence for a long time. But I think it's how you package it and how you walk buyers through it. Also making sure to have the disposition and the posture and the tone that this isn't crazy. It's not weird to do real estate this way. In fact, it's quite normal and quite convenient. And so the way in which we describe things to clients has a profound impact on what's acceptable to the client. And so if we're talking about these things as if this is the new world of real estate or this is super, super unique or super, super different, it'll probably be a little bit nerve-wracking for them, which is exactly what we don't want. We want it to be simple and straightforward and delightful. And so the way that we describe it has a lot to do with the success of these technologies and of these platforms, not so much the platforms themselves. They're all pluses and minuses with the technologies, but how you use it and how you explain how to use it to clients makes all the difference in the world. So for us, we've been using Zoom quite a bit, and we do virtual appointments just like we're doing right now. It's nice because I can flip the screen around and actually show charts and graphs and market statistics and process illustrations that we have in our company. We can do virtual tours where either I go to the home and I'm basically the cameraman, right? I'm walking through the home and they're directing me, and it's live. And so if they want to see underneath the kitchen sink, we can do that. We can actually zoom in and show them anything and everything that they want as if they were there. But it's from the comfort and safety even of their own home. So those are a couple things that we've done on the front end, working with leads, particularly that come in. I work with a ton of Zillow leads, obviously. And so making sure that we promote and provide to them ways to see homes, even if they're not in the city, or even if they don't want to go, or if it's inclement weather, or for any other reason, we can still facilitate those showings. And it really is quite virtual. It's quite realistic, like they're there, especially when it's live and they can ask me questions and I can guide them through the home. We're not trying to sell the home. We're picking it apart as if they were there. And so, yes, we're going to look at some positives, but my job as an advisor is also to point out any negatives that I might see, both on the interior, the exterior. And then, believe it or not, we mount our phones on our dashboards and we'll drive the neighborhood so that people can actually see the neighborhood if they'd like to do that. And that can be done in a matter of hours if they really wanted to see it. So those are a couple different thoughts on just technologies we're using, how we're using it, and then how to package it, because I think that's probably the most important thing.
I think a big point of what you just mentioned is personalization. It's not just about having a video or having this cool drive where they can access everything or a website that has everything lined up step by step. It's being able to be a real person, being able to communicate with them, having conversations, whether you're in person or on the phone, walking them through a house. I think that's huge. And it obviously shows why you're successful in real estate, right? You're making them feel comfortable. Let's shift a little bit to sellers. So I know, again, there's a lot of material about selling homes, but let's be honest, most agents continually want to have more listings under their belt. So Parker, I know that you have some great selling resources, especially on the virtual side. What are you doing currently to enhance your virtual selling presence?
My philosophy, like I mentioned earlier, is always how can I service the client at the highest level, right? And if you break that down, it comes into a lot of what Dave just said. How do you articulate your services to your client? How do you create convenience? How do you approach the appointment? All of those things. And I quickly realized that listing appointments take a long time. You have the home tour, you have the financial piece, you have the CMA, you have getting to know those sellers, everything. Forming rapport is so important with sellers. They're about to list their home, their most prized asset, with somebody that they may or may not have just met. And it's a big deal. So the more and more listing appointments I went on, the more I realized this. And a couple of those pain points of the listing appointment is definitely time in a living room, right? Like if I order something on Amazon, I want it here within 24 hours. Like I am proof of that, right? Like I love convenience, but I also love service. And so I realized that as we sat there for hours and hours and hours, sellers would get sick of having me in their house for 2 to 3 hours, right? And so one of those pieces that I knew I could leverage with technology was my marketing presentation. And I knew that my marketing presentation legitimately takes 30 minutes to explain to them all the great services we offer and how we use our technologies and how we've created this system to produce X results, right? And why we're leaders in the marketplace because of that. And after repetition, doing this hundreds of times, I realized I can just film this and send this to them ahead of time. And so that's what I did is I filmed my listing presentation very much like this, just natural, real. And I highlighted all of the great things that we do and all the things that will be included in that service. I uploaded it to YouTube and I sent that YouTube link to my sellers before I got to the appointment. And so what that did is it allowed me a couple different things. But number one, to save a lot of time in their living room. I'm a dad now. I have a young son. The last thing I want to do is stay at someone's house until 8 or 9 at night. And the same with them. They don't want a realtor at their house until 8 or 9 at night. So we get the hard stuff out of the way. And then when I show up to their house, it's all about getting to know them, getting to know their goals, and figuring out exactly how I can service them to the best of their needs and accomplish our goals together. So that's just one way that I'm leveraging technology on the seller side.
What's interesting in this conversation is, you both have brought up multiple different products for 3D home tours, for example. But I do have to ask, not everybody is as tech savvy or ahead of the times when it comes to tech. And that's totally okay. But what are your recommendations for not only agents who are maybe a little bit more tech averse, but also clients who are tech averse?
I think as far as agents go deep on one thing and become great at it rather than going wide and trying to learn everything. I mean, that can be huge. Number one, I would start with, if you're not a very tech savvy agent, which I know several, I would start by getting all of my documents uploaded into an electronic drive of some sort, Google Drive, right? So when you go to a closing, you don't need to bring that big bulky file anymore. Everything should just be on your phone or your tablet. And I think that's going to alleviate a lot of problems in your business and allow you to move a lot faster. If that's the first thing you can do, you're winning the game, right? And then once you master that, move on to the next thing. And that might be Facebook, it might be Zoom, it might be, whatever it might be. There's so many of them. But I see so many people out there that watch things on the internet or in chat rooms, and it's always that next low-hanging fruit, and you just want all of it. But the best part about it, of going deep, is that you become a master at one thing first, then move on to the next, which means you never have to relearn it. So from an agent perspective, that's what I would say. And if you're still using paper files and they're sitting at your office and COVID-19's out or there's a major blizzard, you can't go and get that file. So having everything in a platform that you can access is extremely advantageous.
I think that's great. One of my mentors is Ben Canning, and he always says we often overcomplicate things to justify our inactions. And I think that's really heavy when you think about that. We often overcomplicate things in order to justify our inactions. And so if you're an agent that looks at technology and looks at the tools and hears the commentary about all the tools and just gets overwhelmed with it, I would just encourage you to, like Parker's saying, just simplify it. Just know and realize that you don't have to be a master at everything. In fact, if you tried to do that, you'd probably be mediocre at all things. Just keep it simple and don't overcomplicate it, because taking action is going to override any kind of complication that's out there. Probably the biggest thing I would tack on to what Parker's saying as well is I think we just all have to get comfortable on camera. We all don't like the way that we look on camera, except for Parker. He actually likes the way he looks, but we all kind of struggle with it, right? We look overweight, we don't look big enough, we don't look smiley enough, whatever, like all the different things that can come up and all the apprehension that comes when you're interfacing with yourself. I think we just have to bite the bullet, swallow the pride, and get over it and get good at it. Here's the good news, though, about being on camera, and we've talked about it a little bit right now, and that is people don't need, nor do they want, a nice, polished, professional presentation, video, where all the lighting is perfect and the sound is great and you're in a suit. Nobody wants that. Everyone knows that's contrived. It's not you. It's not natural. It's not your genuine self. What they want is for your dog to walk through the background and for you to look and giggle and go, whoop, oops, and keep on going and be real. That's what people, I think, are going to buy, is you being real on camera. And if it's not a perfect video, totally fine. And that's true of, listing presentations on video walkthrough tours, consultations, pretty much any of it. So I think we just have to get over that. I think these tools are becoming prolific and are probably going to be ubiquitous across the entire industry, probably within the next 12 to 24 months. And so we just have to figure out a way to navigate with that, even if you're a little bit apprehensive about it.
So I do have to ask, I mean, you mentioned, overcomplication, having a dog walk in the background. I'm just curious, have either of you stumbled on camera before? Do you have any funny stories of working virtually and having a few mistakes come up here and there?
I don't have anything too crazy. Working from home like we all do from time to time. I've had my wife walk behind me with one of our babies and started changing them, not realizing that I was like on a call. Thankfully, it was a repeat client and they just laughed and, changed the diaper and keep on going, right?
When it comes to video mess ups, I get, I honestly, I don't take them very seriously. I don't take offense to anything. And I know that 5 minutes after somebody watches me, they forget that I didn't shave or that my hair sucked or something like that. But the one thing that did happen, because I am a new dad, I had my son on my lap during a client meeting because he was crawling around the floor, and I've got like a little area that all set up that you guys can't see right now. He crawls on my legs, I grab him, I put him on my lap, and he poops his pants, and it's all over. It's just all over, and I'm holding him. I'm like, oh my gosh, can you guys give me 5 minutes? I need to take care of something, and they're like, oh, we heard it. It's phenomenal. Go take care of it. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, like Dave said, it makes you seem like a real person, and you don't need to look like somebody on the movie screen. It's the more genuine, the better, the more real, the better. Obviously be presentable and be yourself, and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a fear of being on camera. But we have to get used to it. I mean, people are in front of cameras all the time. And like you said, you both have stumbled a little bit, but it probably made the conversation better, which is huge. Now, to transition a little bit, I am curious, you both have teams. And a lot of times when you're transitioning the landscape of how people work, it's hard to hold them accountable and to help people adapt to that new technology. So how do you portray these virtual changes to your teams, and how do you ensure that you hold them accountable to it?
One of the things that I know about video is that, like I mentioned, there's just a little bit of natural apprehension. So there's really two approaches to how we tackled that. The first thing is training. We use BombBomb, which is a great video integration into our CRM, which is Follow Up Boss. It also integrates into Gmail. So it just makes it really, really easy, literally one click of a button, and it pops up within Gmail, which is what we use. And so the video's on and you just start talking and then save it and go. So the training part of it is really critical for us. So we spent a couple weeks with our company training on video and talking about these very things that we're doing now. And then on an ongoing basis, I actually have our entire team, our entire company celebrate good videos, right? And so if we're meeting together, I'll put it up on the big screen and put the audio on, and we will actually watch the video that one of my agents sent out. So we'll celebrate it, we'll promote it, we'll point to it and say, that was a great video. And it's usually not what people think. It's not like perfect lighting and all the sound and all dressed up. It's the content and the presentation and how it's done and how much care has been given to the attention of the recipient on that email. So sitting in the buyer shoes or the seller shoes and realizing that was a great video. If I was a buyer or seller, that was informative. It was empowering. I felt like I learned something. It was short. It was concise. And so we promote it. We celebrate it whenever we see a good video. I can see all the videos that go out from our company. And so I'll just pick them and say, this is a good one. And then we'll promote it and celebrate it. And that way people have an example of what a good video is. And they also know that yeah, we're watching the videos. We're watching the ones that go out and picking the ones that are really good.
One thing I've learned through building our team and through hiring and firing and onboarding and all of the other great stuff that comes with being a team leader is you have to hire the person you want to be on your team. You can't just take a warm body. And what I mean by that is if you're looking for somebody who's tech savvy and quick and on the ball, hire for it. Don't hire the person that's not, because it's going to be really hard to train that person. When somebody has to adapt to act a certain way or do something that they're not used to or they haven't done their entire life, it's going to make that even more challenging, and it's going to take more hours, and it's going to be more expensive. And from what I've found, a lot of times it just doesn't work out anyway. So when I am recruiting, I'm looking for a specific person with personality traits and qualities that will fit our system. And that's been really important. The next thing is onboarding. Every great team leader has a very solid onboarding program, and ours is very, very hands-on. It takes a lot of time. It's all day for 5 days straight, and we go through all the technologies, all the systems, the processes, how to answer phones. I mean, literally the whole thing. In 5 days, we're through onboarding because our goal is to get somebody into a transaction within 30 days. And then to take that a step further, do yourself a lot of favors and start filming your onboarding and your training sessions, because then you can use them over and over and over again. And so we have a video library of a lot of our trainings that new agents can go and plug in and watch, and it makes everything so much easier not to have to do it 50 times, right? We have 18 agents on our team. Someday we may have a lot more. I don't want to keep doing that over and over and over. So you can be smarter. One thing we did, just because Facebook comes naturally, is we created a private Facebook group for our team, and we post all the resources to that page. So it's just this rolling list of resources for our team, everything from logins, passwords, scripts, everything, every buyer guides, seller guides, like the list goes on and on and on. But then we also plug those videos in there and just let them live in that private page. That's been huge for us. And it's been huge for our sales manager, Brian, because he's the one that onboards new agents. And if we can save Brian a little bit of time and we can bring more agents in, we're going to be more efficient down the line. So I would definitely recommend those 3 things.
It's amazing. I think everything that you both are bringing up, yes, they involve technology, and yes, it takes time to learn it, but it saves you so much time moving forward, and it makes things so much easier. And I think that's the big point to make, is that we're not just adopting to virtual technology because it's there. We're adopting it because it's making your lives easier. So great points, both of you. I want to ask one more question. If you look towards the future of real estate, what do you think that looks like?
I think well, let me say this before I talk about the future of real estate. I actually am a believer that nothing fundamentally changes for the people that are doing the business right. And what I mean by that, and this is my own humble opinion, is that the people that are doing the business right are providing powerful advisory engagement with buyers and sellers that makes the process of buying and selling homes simple and clear, so that people can make informed and empowered decisions. And so if we're just talking about that, nothing's going to change there. Now, what I do think is going to change, and what is already changing today, right now, is the way in which that happens. And so I think that as we're talking about these concepts of technology and virtual services, there's a little bit of threat in this dialogue. There's a little bit of threat in the narrative of having the industry push further and further and further into technology, where some agents and even in the Zillow Premier Agent community might have a little bit of apprehension or maybe even some fear that they would be not needed anymore or eliminated. And I would say this: agents are going to be automated. There's no question. Advisors are going to be elevated. That's how I see the future. And so if your greatest value add is showing property, you should pivot. You should change, right? But what won't ever be solved technologically, and what I don't think even consumers want to be solved technologically, is for a true advisor to stand with them shoulder to shoulder, guide them through some of the most complex decisions that they're making, make sure they're empowered and informed so that they can make really, really great decisions for them and their family, stand with them emotionally. We all know buying and selling real estate is not easy. It's a little bit complicated, and it's highly disruptive. And there's some apprehension involved with that with the client. And so recognizing that and engaging in those advisory services, I think prolongs for indefinitely our role as agents in the industry. And to me, that's the future of real estate.
Man, you just got me motivated.
That was really good, Dave. Yeah, this one quote's always stuck with me, and it's change before you're forced to change. And if you're somebody that's not embracing the new wave of real estate and business in general, I think now is a time to really dive deep into that stuff and give yourself 6 months to get up to speed, because it's completely true. I mean, with COVID, we've had closings where typically you'd go to a closing table and you sit there for an hour or two with 10 people in the room, and then you'd go home. And now you drive up, sign your papers, walk away, and agents meet you at the house to congratulate you. I think it's way more efficient right now. And I think it's the industry is getting exposed because of that in a good way, like Dave said. And I love change, honestly. Change makes the world better. We're going to have to be more efficient, smarter, quicker, and that's okay. And the main thing that drives all of this is consumer behavior and consumer demand. And if the consumer wants something, someone's going to figure out a way to give it to them the way that they want it, right? We come back to Target Shipped or Amazon Prime, right? It totally changed the world. And so lastly, if I'm going to sell a car, and let's just say that car is a 2010 Toyota, I might just take it down to the dealership and trade it in, right? And just take whatever they give me because I want my cash. But if I have a 1930s Mercedes convertible, I'm going to sell it for full market value while working with somebody who knows how to get me full market value. If I'm going to invest money in the stock market, let's just say I have a couple $1,000, I might throw it into an E-Trade account and buy Facebook stock and get happy every time it goes up a couple bucks. But if I have $1 million or a couple $100,000, I'm going to invest that with somebody who really can advise me. And I think the real estate industry is the same way. I think you're always going to have negotiations. You're always going to have clients trust the advisors that are in this industry. But I think what will change is that the best of the best will rise up, and the not so best of the best will probably go away. That's my opinion.
Thanks, both of you. I don't think I could end this video with any better words than what you two just did. So I just want to say thank you, Parker and Dave, for joining us. I hope you all appreciated the information that was given during the session, and we hope to see you in future webinars. Thank you so much.